So let's take it back to Legends ZA, right? So you said Megas is something that you're like really excited about. That's something that's resonated with you. I do think it's interesting. We've had this discussion before, but I do think it's interesting that like Megas will be coming back, but in a different setting, in a different gameplay style, right? If Legends ZA is gonna function like an action RPG, if it's gonna function like Legends Arceus, that would suggest that the Megas themselves are going to be, at least we're going to interact with them in a much different capacity. And we've even speculated like maybe it's going to maybe Megas are going to function like how they do in Pokemon Go, where you can Mega Evolve something and it stays in its Mega form even in the overworld. I think that could be really interesting. But do you have any thoughts on that or any expectations for how we're going to play with the Megas?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the question of, okay, so if Legends ZA does not have what ends up being the competitive game for Pokemon, what is it going to be? That's where my head first goes, right? And obviously, we have Scarlet and Violet right now, but are they going to be playing Terra, Scarlet and Violet battles for another year after that? I don't know the answer to that, right? So that's the first thing that my head goes to. But I do agree with you that it would almost make the most sense that Legends ZA would have a similar battle system to Legends Arceus, or, it's probably not going to be the typical battle system, and thus Megas are going to change. At the end of the day, like, my love for Megas, I think, stems from the battling side, right? Draft League Pokemon was a big one, drafting a Mega Evolution, having it on your team and stuff. But again, just from a lore perspective, from a design perspective, this idea that you can take this garbage Pokemon that otherwise, not really going to do a whole lot for you. You can give it a Mega Stone and all of a sudden it has this whole new realm of possibilities. It's one of the reasons I love like regional forms so much, right? Yeah. Just reimagining these creatures that I loved growing up, or playing through games and having them in a totally different kind of vibe or usability pool or whatever it may be, was something that just really always appealed to me. So in terms of the battle style and how Megas are going to function, I'm not going to say that I've spent a ton of time thinking about it. I think I'm just like still like Megas, yeah. But you bring up some good points. There's a really good chance that it's a totally different system, and that it may not function the same way. But like I said, I'm just glad to see them come back to the franchise, because for years I've wanted them to revisit it, because of all the mechanics that we've seen, of all the different kind of gimmicks, as people call them. To me, Megas felt like the one that had the chance to actually stick and like really be a part of the franchise
forever.
And that seems to be what's been the case through some of the spin-off games and stuff. But to have them bring it back to the main series again, that's, for me as a Pokemon fan looking many years into the future, that's something that gets me excited as well.
Yeah, it definitely seems like that might happen with this as well. Like, if I just made a post on it actually, which is funny that we're talking about it, but if if they put Megas in this game and there's no competitive in this game in Legends ZA, then naturally they're gonna have to move to Gen 10 with the Megas. And so does Megas just continue? Is Megas just gonna be a part of Pokemon like going forward, like as a standard battle gimmick that's just there all the time? It's interesting. That's the short version.
It should.
I mean, because when you kind of look at the competitive landscape, my understanding from the top competitive players is they actually don't really like Megas as much as maybe a casual person like myself would. I think that some of the other mechanics lead to maybe what is more favorable in competitive, whether it be the Dynamaxing or the Terra. I quite like Dynamaxing, but I just feel like when I look at the full picture of the Pokemon franchise, Megas just stand out to me as a really good solution to provide this like super powerful creature that highlight what the original version of it did.
And it's the core of what Pokemon are, right? Like, Pokemon is battling, it's trading, it's catching, and it's evolving, right? And I feel like Mega Evolution, like those designs, even though I would argue aren't really, they're obviously not true evolutions, because they're not different monsters. They're just like obviously a Mega Evolution of the monster. Right. But I do think when you look at the design, when you look at the key art, right, the Sugimori art style, like they just look like full new Pokemon, and when you remove those, there's like a disconnect there. It feels like Dexit. It's like, where the heck is this Pokemon that I love, right? Like, where is this? Where all of the other forms, I feel like Dynamax, I don't care about as much, or I guess it's Gigantamax, or the Terra hats.
I'd like to see Gigantamax. I want it.
I don't feel that way because it was tied to 3 turns. You know what I mean? Like, hypothetically, you can have a Mega the whole battle, but that Dynamax is ending in 3 turns, guaranteed.
That's a good point. Yeah. So yeah, I just think megas in general, I think people like them because they feel like it's like what you were saying, like a regional form, right? Where you're like, I like this design. Where is it? It feels like an actual monster, a buddy, like a friend, right? They say like Pokemon should be designed to like feel like friends, and I feel like even the megas fulfill that. Where the Gigantamax forms, they're not. They're like Goliaths, right? That's not your little buddy. I think
also too has a lot of. I mean, I think for one, it has a lot of weight and nostalgia for us because it was like the OG gimmick, and then for two, you do also. The reason I think that it could, like, to go back to what Soul was saying, continue in Gen 10, continue onwards, is for one, we've seen it exist with another gimmick before. It was in Gen 7 with Z moves, and no other gimmick has done that since. And then for two, just looking at the gimmick itself, it's not a hard thing to, I think, exist in battles with Terrastol or Dynamax or whatever. But then also too, I wonder how competitive players would feel about it in like a different format. Because one thing that people started talking about recently, I don't remember what VGC player said this, but some VGC player, a relatively big one, posted on Twitter that they actually thought that Z moves would actually be really well received now with open team sheets. And so that's an interesting side of it too, I think. Like, how would it differ if we just changed other things about competitive? Maybe it would be more accepted there as well.
It'd be cool if like the Gen 10 game had access, or we had access to all these different battle gimmicks, and then with each season, maybe every year, they're like, well, this is the Z move era, or this is the year of the Z move, and then the metagame, the competitive VGC metagame has to like shift, and adjust to that whole new gameplay. That'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, so aDrive,
you have an idea for them to implement.
What is it?
I said that's too good of an idea for them to implement.
Yeah.
We got a lot of those. What so I mean, I'm expecting there's going to be new megas implemented.
100%. There's got to be.
Yeah. Is there anything that stands out to you where you're like, this needs a new form?
Yeah, I think when you look at kind of the library of new Pokemon that have been introduced into the game since kind of the Gen 6, Gen 7 timeline, there's a lot of really cool potential Pokemon that I think could get megas. So I think it could really span it. And it's hard to even like predict what's going to get one when you have things like Audino getting them, right? It's like, where did that come from? There's obviously a very long lack of presence in Gen 5 for Mega Evolution. So that's something that I think could make a lot of sense as we approach these next few months and what the end of the year could look like. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing in my mind that I'm like, oh, that's definitely going to get a mega. Obviously, I have a few favorites, but I think there's got to be new megas. If there's not, then, oh man, that would be very disappointing, I think.
I'm sure you're pulling for Mega Mothim.
Now, I mean, listen, I like Mothim a lot. I think that there's other better candidates, though.
I want Mega Mothim.
Soul wants Mega Mothim.
I need
it. Don't get me wrong. I feel like when I think of some of the newer Pokemon that have come out, I think that there could be some really cool ones. Like I think of like Low Kicks is a really cool.
Sure.
I really like. So I'd like to see them explore a little bit there. Mothim is always a special Pokemon to me, but yeah, I just, as much as I've theory crafted a Mega Mothim a bunch of times, I think it would still be bad.
Yeah, I mean, that could be the case. There are definitely some that I feel like the Mega design is much worse, like actually kind of ruins the original design. Like Heracross, I'm not. They know that, but I hate Mega Heracross. I hate that
Mega
design
Heracross is
so
cool,
much.
Though. It's cool.
It grew on me. It definitely grew on me.
Yeah,
it's weird. It's weird because it doesn't look like Heracross. It looks like a different Pokemon.
It looks like Heracross's cousin.
Yeah, it's like a distant uncle.
What do you got against Heracross's cousin?
That's what I'm saying. I like it. I like it. I think the Mega.
Yeah, Beedrill. Yeah.
But I do like your idea of like, revisiting Gen 5 too, because I think also that would kind of in turn perhaps even help the sales of a hypothetical 2024 Unova remake, right? Because it's like, oh, you got to play with all these Pokemon, and now look, they can Mega Evolve,
Yeah, it would tie in nice.
Or they could even put Megas in the Gen 5 remake too, right?
Oh, please.
Wishful thinking once again, right?